Hi, and welcome to our Meet the Management series, where we explore the real stories behind the people building and leading businesses. I'm Tabitha Oxford. Today I'm joined by Shane Sun. Shane, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into coaching?
Yeah, hi, Tabitha. Thanks for having me on. So I started in business as a whole. I started in sales and in HR specifically. I dealt with a lot of leadership teams and a lot of people in those roles. I then started crossing different roles in different departments. And I realized that there was a massive gap in all the departments I'd worked with. They had good strategies, they had competent people, but execution became a problem. So I found the gap to be thinking and behavior through the leadership and the execution. And I decided that coaching would be the way that I could actually go from different businesses and different individuals and help them solve their problem. Most business problems aren't strategic problems. They're people and thinking problems.
Critics often argue that coaching is just an expensive sounding board, a paid friendship. How do you distinguish a professional coaching engagement from a high quality conversation with a wise mentor or a trusted friend?
I think that the greatest difference there is the difference between being nice and being kind. Friends and mentors are generally nice. They're there to support your ideas, they're there to support your dreams and where you currently are. Coaches are kind, but aren't always nice. I think that the root core or the root element in coaching is to challenge for growth. We focus on challenging thoughts, belief systems, and current evidence through holding people accountable and driving to certain outcomes, not just feelings of being supported and confidence. Ultimately, I think a friend supports you through what you're going through, and a coach challenges you on how you can be different and better and show up better, whether it's in business, friendships, families, relationships, or the like.
So, in the corporate world, every line item is scrutinized for its return on investment. If a CEO spends 100,000 Rand on coaching, how do you measure the tangible bottom line impact of that spent 6 months down the line?
So I believe that, especially through the business elements in the business realm, that every coaching engagement should be measurable and have tangible outcomes. Ultimately, it starts with coaching the individual. Through coaching, you should be able to get better decision making, faster decision making, higher levels of clarity and alignment. This then will have a direct impact on the team alignment itself. It'll improve execution, it'll improve communication, it'll improve staff retention. All of these things have a bottom line impact on the income statement itself. So revenue within sales improves, costs reduce through operations and efficiencies, and staff retention saves training and replacements.
So, with regards to this bottom line impact, is the ultimate goal of coaching to make themselves redundant? Some argue that long-term coaching creates a crutch for executives who should be developing their own decisiveness. How do you ensure that you aren't just fostering dependency?
So bad coaching would create dependency, but high level good coaching creates independent thinking. Ultimately, through coaching, you build frameworks, critical thinking, decision making confidence, and the ability to assess situations. Success ultimately for a coach should look like a client bringing forward their own answers and being able to hold accountability, critical thinking, and challenge those in the sessions themselves. For me, success is when the client stops needing my thinking and they trust their own. However, a second opinion is never a bad thing.
The coaching industry has exploded recently, but it remains largely unregulated. What is the actual psychological or neuroscientific basis for why coaching works? And how do you separate the evidence-based practice from toxic positivity?
So I think that's one of the biggest challenges in our industry at the moment is that people believe that coaching is there for motivation and for inspiration. However, great coaching actually stems from good psychological practices. Cognitive behaviors shift through cognitive behavioral therapy, exposure therapy, classical conditioning, or covert conditioning, and those all tie into neuroplasticity. And as repetition builds through the accountability and through the discussions, so you create a true long lasting change within oneself. Coaching isn't there to make you feel better, but true change happens outside of the comfort zone. And it's that discomfort that is actually very much needed to grow as an individual. And the coaches, once the trust is built up between coach and client, uses that to shift people into better logics, better thinking, and better versions of who they really are.
Many leaders hire coaches because they want a cheerleader, but what they often need is a challenger. Can you share a time where your coaching worked precisely because you made the client uncomfortable? And how do you manage that friction without losing the contract?
So this happens very, very often. And I think the most recent and one of my most common experiences is that of the founder who has built a business. Recently, I worked with a founder who had built a phenomenal business and had a very, very set belief that speed and agility was the key to everything. The challenge came in when I had to get them to start shifting their thinking and challenge their deep-seated belief from a founder mentality to CEO mentality, and that possibly they may not be the correct person for the business. Ultimately, the trust basis between the two parties, myself and the client, allowed me to challenge that belief system and use evidence versus assumption that this was the way forward. The founder eventually stepped out of the business and hired a CEO, and both are now far happier than when she was running the business herself. So ultimately, the discomfort isn't necessarily the goal, but it's the doorway to the growth that needs to happen.
There is a lingering stigma that you only hire a coach when something is wrong, the remedial view of coaching. How do you pivot that conversation to a position coaching as a tool for the elite rather than a fix for the struggling?
I do believe that coaching can help people that are struggling get back to a neutral basis. But if you want to be truly elite in life, I believe that the body, the mindsets, and belief structures all function in a very, very similar way. And just like truly elite athletes continue with coaching when they're at the top of the game to ensure that they continue improving or maintain that absolute cutting edge of what they do. Top CEOs, top thought leaders all should follow that same coaching ideology, that you're not coaching necessarily just for fixing, you're coaching for optimization. You don't have to repair, but you can improve. So in different areas of growth stages, when you're at the top, if you stop working at it, just like your body, you'll start losing that competitive edge that you have. So ultimately, the best don't wait until something breaks. They coach so they can stay at the top.
Thank you so much for joining us for today's Meet the Management, Shane. I'm Sabbath Oxford, and I was joined today by Shane's son.
Thanks a lot for having me on. I believe that everybody can improve. I believe that even if you choose not to use a coach, that ultimately the purpose of life is to continue growing.